all your friends and everybody else who didn't come. I want you to tell them that they missed the best night ever.
Yeah.
And whatever food we're going to have is off the chain amazing. So, all right, by way of briefest introduction, my name is Michael Bullitt. Bang. And that's how I used to introduce myself is, hi there, my name is Michael Bullitt, son of a gun. So I grew up as the son of missionary parents to Papua New Guinea. Went around the world 4 times before I was 17. My dad's 97. He was born in London, England in 1921. He served 5 years in World War II, which is a long time ago, in the Royal Navy. Then he immigrated to the U.S. and joined up in the U.S. Navy, became a naturalized American citizen, joined up in the U.S. Navy for 10 years. And then after 10 years, then he found God, or God found him, and he got out, and he went to Bible school in England. And he went on a summer missions program in England at the age of 44, and he met my mom, who was born in Vancouver, in Zaventem in Belgium, and they got married. He was 46 and she was 26. Way to go, Dad. First and last marriage for both of them. Well, I mean, he's still alive, and Mom's 78 now, so we'll see what happens when the Lord takes him home. You know, maybe my mom will decide she's going to go around too. But so then I was born in Pennsylvania. While my mom and dad were passing through there on their way to New Guinea for missionary boot camp training. And yeah, I went to like 10 different schools growing up. I was in Christian schools, I was in public schools, because my dad's from England and my mom is from Vancouver, when we would take our furlough. So you're 4 to 5 years on the mission field, and then you take a 1-year break, and you come back and you visit all the places where you had, where you're from, and all the people who are supporting you, giving you $5, $10 a month because you're a missionary overseas somewhere. And so you're visiting all of them, and you're going, hey, we're still here, the cannibals didn't eat us, and there were people in our tribe who were cannibals who had eaten human flesh, so that was a real thing. And so because my parents were from all over the place, none of us in the same family were even born in the same country, we would spend 6 months of the year traveling all across North America, visiting all the way down to California and all the way up the eastern seaboard, all across the Midwest, and then all the way back, visiting all of these little towns and places. And then we'd go to England, and we'd go all over England, the Isle of Wight, Inverness up there, and visiting all of these places. And I used to have to go to English school. And I went to an English school called King Ethelbert. King Ethelbert, but they can't seem to say TH. It's Ethelbert. And I walked in there, and there's like 2,000 kids, and I'm the only American. And they're like, oh, you a Yank then? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I smash. All they do is fight over there. I don't know if it's changed since then, but that's all they want to do is fight. And, I'll take you around the box, give you a swirly. What even is that? You don't want to find out. It's a bad thing, right? And thank you, guys. Thank you. Come on in already. So I learned how to adapt very quickly. I learned how to adapt and pick up accents, because if I didn't learn how to do that, then I usually got hurt or ostracized and everything. And so that became a skill. And skills are important, because sooner or later, your mother or your father telling you that you're special is not enough.
Really?
At some point, you look around at your peers and you're like Napoleon Dynamite. I don't have any skills, man. Girls only want to go out with guys with skills. And Pedro's like, what do you mean? Nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills. I don't have any skills. But the truth is that he did have a skill. By the end of the movie, we found out he could what? Dance! And he went from 0 to hero because he developed a skill. Skills and abilities give you power. Everybody say power.
Power.
Oh, come on, say it like you mean it. Power. There we go, yes. So power is really important. And we're going to talk tonight, I better get into this before I run out of time. We're going to talk tonight about, I'm going too fast. Am I going too fast? Let me see. There we go. We're going to talk about V power. And I know that we were calling it V5 power, and I'm totally fine if some of you guys want to, but V also means 5, right? Roman numerals. So you say, well, so what is V power? And some guys would be like, well, that's a V6. Yeah, that's got power, V6 engine. There's a V6 engine, and some people are like, no, a V8. And you can see why it's called a V, because the pistons are in the shape of the cylinders and the pistons are in the shape of a V. So you have that. Then you also have V is for victory. And where that comes from is good old Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, V for victory, he started this. Actually, he initially started doing this, but that's a really bad sign in England. It pretty much, is a bad sign. Don't do that to English people. So you got, but that's kind of peace, right? That's what people do for peace. And then you got this. What is that? 5. That's a Roman numeral. That's a 5, all right? So 5 is a key for us because we're going to be talking about 5 different things that all start with V that bring us power or give us power and enable us. And if you guys can remember these 5 things for next time, Wendy or somebody over there who organizes food is going to give you a double portion, and I did not clear that with them, so I'm probably in huge trouble right about now. But I really want you to remember it. So we need a prize. We need a prize week to week, or month to month here, so that we can make sure that people remember stuff. Power. Who here wants to be powerless? Go ahead, stick your hand up way high. What?
No.
What? None of you want to be powerless? No, of course we don't want to be powerless. As human beings, we were made to be powerful. And there's lots of different ways to be powerful. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm here to pump you up. As for the parents, kids are like, right over the head. Didn't even get that. Look at Arnold's muscles. That's a lot of muscles. Arnold, he was a man of power. And whoops, that's a little bit later. Wow, look at the difference there. Oh, all good things come to an end. All earthly things come to an end. And so that's why we have in our society, we have so much interest in superheroes. Because we fantasize about being really, really powerful. We have all sorts of social fantasies, and we're like, man, that guy who's pushing me around, or that person who's mistreating me, what if I could just be like, and just freeze them with like freeze stare or something like that, right? And so we come up with these movies which have become insanely popular. You have Superman, nobody looks quite like that except Arnold, and he doesn't look like that anymore. And then you have everybody else who just dresses up like they're going to Comic-Con in costumes. These are regular human beings that put their pants on one leg at a time, that have to go to the bathroom just like the rest of you. But they dress up in ridiculous outfits because we are so into fantasizing about power. And as a quick aside, do you know what witchcraft is? Anybody?
Unauthorized power.
It's the quest for power. It's the quest for power outside of God. It's the desire to be powerful without having to be accountable. What else is powerful? Money. Money is powerful. Whoops, sorry, that's the U.S. money. There we go. Canadian money.
But we want U.S. dollars.
I know. It's powerful, right? And you can't have money if you're talking power without a gun. And now it's like, okay, now we're starting to get into a different kind of power. Yes, now you're getting into gangster. And you know what? Our culture is absolutely horrific. It's sending our young adults the message that power is cool and rebellion is cool. And lawlessness is cool. And now we have groups like Antifa. Young men and women, mostly men, some women, but walking around with slogans that say, become ungovernable. In other words, we're just going to rebel, screw everybody. We hate everyone. And you see them, they also want anonymity. They don't want to be recognized for what they're doing. But let me tell you something. Rebellion and that whole idea that is actually true power, it leads to one thing: bondage. Rebellion leads to bondage. I'm going to do whatever I want. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. That doesn't lead you to freedom and more power. It actually leads you to restrictions. Because I've got people that I go and visit as a pastor in jail, and they get told when they can eat, when they can go for a walk on the playground. They get told how much toilet paper they can have in their tiny little cell and who they have to room it with. And I know friends that at one point were plugged into the HA, that's the Hells Angels, for those of you who don't know. And he told me, he said, man, that is not freedom. He says, they tell you how many days of the year you have to ride your bike. And if you don't, you're in big trouble. They'll kill you. So it sounds like freedom. Yeah, we're Hell's Angels. We're, night rider. We're on the road. We're the warriors of the road, and we'll do whatever we want. But sooner or later, most of them end up behind bars. So those things don't actually bring us true power. Pardon me, I'm a pastor. I cannot give a message to anybody without talking briefly about God. I must do it. God created us in His image. He commanded us to subdue the earth and to exercise dominion. Anybody know what dominion is? Dominion is power. In our national anthem, when we sing, He shall have dominion from sea to sea, it means that God will have power from sea to sea over everything. God created you to be powerful.
Nice.
God created you to be powerful. And going, well, I don't really want much power, is actually false humility. Not humidity, it's false humility. False humility is when you think it's really humid, but it's not. But not wanting power is false humility, because God created you and intended for you to have power. He intended for you to have power, and all of you guys not to wait till you're as old as some of us. I'm going to be really careful here. I'm going to be disempowered. Don't wait until you're older to begin to discover how you can be as powerful as possible in a way that is also with integrity. So V-power. What are the V's? Well, the first one is virtue. The next one is voice. I'm not going to go all through these tonight. We're going to have other people do some of them too at another time. Third one is value. Fourth one is vote. And the fifth one is volunteer. So, let's talk about virtue. How many of you guys, adults please don't answer, how many of you young people know who that is on the left? Raise your hand. Does anybody know who this man is right here? Yeah, okay, yes, your youth. Harvey Weinstein. Any of you youth know who Harvey Weinstein is? Have you ever heard of hashtag Me Too? Yes? So hashtag Me Too is a movement in which people, specifically women, started to say, I've been abused. I'm not keeping silent about it any longer. And it really kind of started with this guy right here. There was a woman named Rose Gowan who came out and said, this guy is scum. He has abused me. He is a powerful film producer. And right there you can see him in his glory. Right there you can see him in his power. Those are actresses. There's his beautiful wife. There he is hanging out with George Clooney. He had a lot of power. You couldn't get a lot of movies made in Hollywood without Harvey Weinstein having his finger in it for a piece of the pie. But he had no virtue. And sooner or later that came out. And there he is there. Doesn't look too powerful, does he? No. Being led by police. There he is in the court, sitting there, being charged with rape. There he is now on the front of the cover of Time magazine. Producer, predator, pariah. Anybody know what pariah means, young people? Pariah means untouchable, horrible, worst thing ever, don't go near. So if somebody is a pariah, they're like, there's nothing good that anybody is saying about them. I will also say that if he repents, people of faith will understand that there's forgiveness for him. But his lack of virtue removed from him his power. Let me just find my phone real quick here. So, your virtue, or the perception of your virtue, because at least for some time people perceived, let's go back and look at Mr. Weinstein again. For some time people perceived that he was, well, I don't know, okay guy. And if you're an okay guy, okay, all right, well then we'll be okay with you until we find out that you're not an okay guy. And then you become very much disempowered. So your virtue, or the perception of your virtue, gives you power. If it is uncovered that you are in fact not virtuous, you will lose a very great deal of your power, and if criminally unvirtuous like him, you may lose everything. You may lose your freedom, you may lose all of your money, you may be put in prison and have, all of your power. I mean, this guy used to travel around the world, the most expensive hotels, the who's who in the zoo. He used to hang out with all the special people, but when it became abundantly clear to everyone that he had no virtue, he lost everything. So young people, I want to tell you this. Who you are when no one is watching is who you are. And if your virtue is if you're only doing the dishes when mom's watching, if you're only doing your homework, studiously and everything, but actually you're cheating from a friend and everything, these things will come out, and when they do, you will be massively disempowered. And you don't want that to happen. Power is the ability to influence your environment up to and including other people. Part of the power that God intends that we should have is the power to influence other people for good. So if you're with your friends, how many of you are over the age of 19? Young people, raise your hands. Well, just everybody, raise your hand if you're over the age of 19. Okay, so we have a bunch under the age of 19, and we have a few over the age of 19. If you're with your friends and they've gone to some kind of party where alcohol is flowing, and one of them decides he's going to get in his car and drive home, and you know that he's had too much, you can use your influence as his friend for good to say, no, you're not doing this. Give me the keys, we're calling a cab, or I'll find someone else to drive you home. Now, would you agree with me that that's a good kind of influence to have on your friend? Yeah, it most likely will save his life and maybe other people that he might hit. So, power is the ability to influence your environment up to and including other people. Power comes from truth. If you cannot speak the truth, you will never have true power. Let me say that again. If you cannot speak the truth, you will never have true power. You may have temporary power, and we saw that, with all the gangbangers and all that kind of stuff. They get temporary power because you can get power other ways other than virtue. You can get it by intimidation. You can get it by deception, by greed, by manipulation. But this is temporary power. And when you sell your soul in order to gain that kind of power, that crop that you're going to reap from those bad seeds is going to be very unpleasant, and it will again rob you of freedom, which is a form of power. Temporary power comes through violence and lies. The truest form of power is to be able to influence God. And this will not happen without significant levels of virtue, because you cannot fool him, you cannot intimidate him or control him. Listen, the only way that you can influence God is virtue. How many know that faith is a virtue? You influence God by your faith in him and the fact that he is the one who calls the shots and makes the rules. And when you have that kind of faith, a few years ago, God kind of came to me and said, you know what, you're a pastor, you've been a missionary kid and everything, but you're not obeying the laws, you're actually kind of lukewarm. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, how come you speed? Oh, I'm stepping on toes now. How come you speed? Because you know you're doing wrong, because the moment you see the policeman, you jam on the brake. But I've told you to submit to the governing authorities. For all authority comes from God, and the authorities which exist are appointed by God. So you know what? It took me about 6 months to break my horrible habit of speeding. But I now have the freedom to do the speed limit, and I watch everybody go flying by, and I'm like, they're bound up by their impetuousness, by this thing inside that goes, oh, I have to go faster.